Hey friends, welcome back to Burn Stress, Lose Weight. Today's entire podcast episode is on a concept that I have coached enough clients on that I wanted to record an entire podcast episode just to break this one down. Because if you're not aware of this one very sneaky thought that might be bumping around in your head, you might be sabotaging your goals and your ability to achieve sustainable results without even realizing it. And that is ever telling yourself that you've gone backwards. Recently over on Instagram, I polled my audience. If you're not following me on there, I'm at Burn Stress, Lose Weight. Come on there, join me, especially in Instagram stories where I love to share a lot of behind the scenes and I ask a lot of questions to see what you're interested in. I asked my audience if they wanted to have a specific series from me called If I Wasn't Afraid to Hurt Your Feelings, this is what I would say. This was based on a recent trend over on social media where people were posting very blunt, direct posts. If they weren't afraid to hurt your feelings, this is exactly what they would say to help you achieve your goal, to help you feel better, to help you have the next level. And the posts that came out of that entire trend were literal gems. They were direct, no fluff, they were to the point. And honestly, for me personally, when I'm consuming content, that is the kind of content that I really love consuming. I want no fluff content that is direct and to the point, that really hits me in the heart, helps me see where my gaps are, and then shows me how to overcome some of my biggest barriers. This is not just feel-good content or something plucked out of the book or something you can simply Google. It is based on real, raw, lived experience. When I polled my audience on Instagram, the results were overwhelmingly 100% of people said, yes, do the series. If I wasn't afraid to hurt your feelings here on the podcast, what are the things that I would tell you? Everything I share in the series as I bring these episodes out is not only what I have seen with my clients and what holds back dream results for smart women in literally every industry. These are actual obstacles that I have personally endured. So if you feel called out, I want you to know that you're not at all alone because I have been there. It is something that I see coming up with overachievers again and again and again. But when you see the cost of keeping some of these barriers, hopefully it will inspire you to do the work to change it. And today's concept actually inspired a framework that I created for my clients. I call it the Wonderment Filter. So you're going to learn that concept at the end of this episode once we walk through the exact obstacle that is probably slowing you down. My invitation to you from now moving forward is to stop telling yourself that you have ever gone backwards, ever. It is the most useful thought. And because I'm not afraid to hurt your feelings, I want to tell you how expensive of a thought it is. Telling yourself that you've ever gone backwards in any area of your life, this is with weight loss, career, relationships, you pick your flavor, pick your corner. Telling yourself that you've ever gone backwards, it literally creates nothing. You create no value when you tell yourself that sentence. You don't feel inspired. You don't gain knowledge. You don't actually have the ability to turn it around. In fact, what it actually does is it creates guaranteed disappointment, shame, self-criticism, and usually dread. I want to start with first, why is it that overachievers ever tell themselves that they've gone backwards? What are some scenarios that you might notice yourself telling yourself this story with, and what's the actual cost? You might hear yourself believing I've gone backwards if the scale is up a pound, or if you've undone some of your wins in the gym. Maybe you were doing really well with your partner or in your marriage and you start fighting again, or you're not connecting the way you used to. Maybe your kid was doing really well. They started to acclimate to a new environment, to a new school or a new sports team, but now they're struggling. There are so many areas outside of the educational system where we have a win, but then we hit a sticky season or a sticky spot. So I wanted to start with saying that most overachievers bring their student mindset, which has served you really well in school and in the earlier parts of your career, into these other parts of real life. And that's where we get messy. The student mindset is believing that progress is supposed to be linear and you only make decisions when you feel 100% sure or certain of your outcome. We know that the student mindset for all of us listening to this podcast, myself included, really worked well. It probably got you the A+, it got you some gold stars, and it might have even gotten you some early career traction. So while it worked really well to create good grades, it may not be feeling very good to bring this mindset into every corner of your life. I have experienced this problem enough times where it led me to create the Wonderment Filter, which I'm going to be talking about later on this podcast. And it's the exact framework I have used to maintain results. So this actually came up for me recently where last year, if you've listened to the podcast for a while, I made a very bold and public claim here on the podcast, January of last year, that I wanted to be able to hit 60 minutes on the StairMaster without feeling completely out of breath like I was losing a lung. Now, in January of last year, I could only do 5 to 6 minutes on the StairMaster. So for me to claim that I was going to do 60 by the end of the year was outrageous. I had no business because I couldn't do it, but I knew that if I created a simple plan, a strategy that folded in my real life, where I allowed small wins to compound. I made space for off-plan moments and off-plan weeks. I knew that the math of the year would actually allow me to get there. We have other episodes on this podcast on how to properly plan and strategize to guarantee results. But one of the biggest things I did was take real life into account and let small, simple wins compound. And building on last week's podcast episode, rather than just focusing on the ultimate goal, which was 60 minutes on the StairMaster and only being proud when I hit the goal, I started to place pride in the process, which means every time I showed up, every time I laced up the sneakers, every time I got on the StairMaster, even when it felt hard or boring or monotonous, I recognized myself and I felt proud for doing the hard thing. I did my bougie sauna routine, and basically I taught myself to fall in love with the effort and the work. And that's what made it really sustainable. Now, over the course of last year, which I broke down in detail in our New Year's episode this year, I had a lot of messy moments. We went off track, we had some travel, but we came back every single time. And by December 16th of this past year, we hit the 1 hour goal. Now, I shared this over on Instagram stories. So again, if you're not there, I suggest you join me over there. But here's what happened after I hit the 1 hour goal. Because of the holidays and some work travel and then some family travel. And then we had a huge snowstorm where my kids were home for over 10 days. And then my husband had to travel and then I had to travel again. I did not get back onto the StairMaster for over a month. More like 6 weeks. I want you to just take a guess on what happened the day that I came back. By the 12-minute mark, my brain was protesting. The StairMaster felt harder than ever before. The boredom was really getting to me. I was feeling completely out of breath again by the 12-minute mark. I had a total Eeyore energy. You know Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh? I just had all the discouraging thoughts. There you go again. I can't believe you've messed up. You've already lost so many wins. You've gone backwards. Now here's where most overachievers will linger. We will have the thought like you've gone backwards, and I've done this more times than I can count, so I'm very familiar. But I want to dive into why this one sentence is literally going to be poison for you to achieve your goals in a way that stands the test of your real life. First off, let's get real. We've never gone backwards. We have simply lost some gains, and there's a huge difference. It's not actually possible to go backwards unless you have a time machine and can rewind time, in which case, please tell me how you're doing that and let me know. But it's literally not possible to go backwards unless you have a time machine. All that happened was Newton's first law of motion, the law of inertia. It's just simple physics. When you are in motion, you are more likely to stay in motion. And that is taking small daily actions, building momentum, getting consistent results. So when you're in motion and taking consistent action, you're more likely going to see consistent results towards your body goals. But then very naturally, because we're living human lives, something got in the way. Life, travel, holidays, weekend, even complacency. And this is the moment that overachievers naturally have a pause. This is what I call a plot twist. When you stopped, it's much easier to stay stopped. You didn't go backwards, you simply stopped taking small, meaningful, consistent action. That's all. But the amount of bandwidth that smart, overachieving professional women will spend shaming themselves on having quote unquote gone backwards or losing the gains that they might have made is in the astronomical range. And I see you because I have been there, I have done it, and I see clients that I have worked with in literally every industry go through this as well. And the reality is, part of the reason that your brain might go to a lot of self-criticism or a lot of I went backwards thoughts is because at some point in the past, likely in your student era, harsh criticism and telling yourself that story drove you into action. This is again the student mindset. It's basically trying to force you to pull an all-nighter to catch up on getting an A on the exam. But our life is not an all-nighter, right? This is why trying to apply your student mindset to real life doesn't usually work. What we have to own, and what I really hope to do together on this podcast, is if we want the results, we have to own the plot twists alongside it. We have to own it, lean in, and be hungry for the learning. And I'm telling you, when we can shift over out of blame, shame, and judgment, it feels so good to give yourself permission to learn. Rather than being someone that needs to make perfect progress all the time or having the facade that you're always making some linear perfect progress, you get to have your back through those tough, sticky seasons where a plot twist got in your way. It was never meant to be linear, but we try so hard, and this is where a lot of our suffering comes from. It's like when you might have sleep trained your kids and they were gloriously sleeping through the night, and then maybe after a few months or a year, they had a sleep regression. They might be going through a growth spurt or something came up in their day. Maybe they're in a growth spurt or they're encountering a challenging season in their childhood development, and all of a sudden sleeping becomes difficult again. That doesn't mean that you're back to square one. You didn't go backwards. It simply means that something changed. And this is where the Wonderment filter is going to come into place. We have to look at what changed. Was it a growth spurt, new environment, conflict at school? Was there a bad dream? Now, are these questions tedious? Yes, but I want to encourage you that it's worth asking these questions. Love yourself enough to know yourself. It's not wasteful, it's fierce advocacy. And it feels really good when you ask questions from that place that's going to open up so many answers. The only thing that will ever take you back to square one is believing that you are at square one. And here's why. When you think that you've gone backwards, how do you feel and what do you do next? Really sit with that question. If you need to pause the podcast episode here, pause it and really reflect. The last time that you told yourself, I've gone backwards, how did you feel and how did you show up? This is the think, feel, act cycle at play, and it will explain your results 100% of the time. Since I've been there and I've coached clients on this is what it actually looks like. When you have the thought, I've gone backwards, most of us will feel discouraged or deflated. Now, this emotion is a very real, visceral feeling in your body. It's not something that's made up in your head. It is your body bathing in an emotional experience. And you'll know that this is true because you'll feel it. Maybe you feel your heart drop or that pit in your stomach. Your palms might get sweaty or you feel that pounding in your head. Your feelings are not make-believe. They are the driver of everything. And the trouble for overachievers when it pertains to stress, especially around results that matter to you, is the overachiever will often kick into survival coping mechanisms. This is where your stress archetype is going to be strongly at play. Everyone has normal stress archetypes. These are just your normal autopilot behaviors that are designed to help you survive. So they're meant to be there. However, a lot of overachievers are over-indexing on our stress archetypes to run our whole life. And so rather than living from a place where we are thriving in our workplace, in our relationships, and even with weight loss, we end up living in survival mode. It doesn't matter how smart you are or how many diplomas you have, you cannot escape real life stresses, which is why this piece of the process is really worth understanding. If you don't know what your predominant stress archetypes are, it's so helpful to know simply because it's an opportunity to get to know yourself better. And when you know yourself better, you get to make purposeful adjustments in terms of how you want to respond to situations that you might typically react in. If this is something you have not done yet, I strongly encourage that you check out our stress archetypes quiz. It is a simple quiz that I've created to walk you through this process. You'll get to a results page that will reveal your predominant stress archetype. And on your results page, I will share actual strategies and specific resources to help guide you on how to overcome your unique stress archetype. You'll also get an email from me where you can snoop on the other types. You can go and grab that over at www.burnstressloseweight.com/stress. So let's get back to my example. You've told yourself a sentence in your mind. 2 neurons in your brain fire, and this releases a chemical cascade in your body that is very real. And it's the emotional experience of discouragement. Really check in when you're feeling that way. What do you do next? What do you not do? Since I've been there and I've coached clients through this is what it typically looks like. You very simply stop showing up. You create a lot of justifications and excuses in your brain to put off taking action until quote unquote later. You create a lot of convincing, convenient, and very compelling, I call these 3C stories that see it was never going to happen anyway. You don't own your results. You blame yourself for them. You end up with a lot of self-criticism, a lot of judgment. And when that feels like too much, you stick your head in the sand or look for another fresh start. The biggest thing that happens when you tell yourself you've gone backwards and you feel discouraged isn't only that you stop taking action, you never ask yourself the high quality questions that will actually help you solve the problem. So you never deeply learn from the plot twist that took you off track, and you end up acting like you really are at square one. This is why a lot of times overachievers that are the smartest women with all the diplomas will literally sit on the weight loss roller coaster where you lose the same weight and then you gain it back and then you lose it again and then you gain it back simply because of this model. And I'm telling you this because I have been there. I have lost weight and then I have gained it back and then I lose it again and then I've gained it back. And every single time I went through a cycle like that, I would create more and more discouragement, believing that I've just gone backwards again. Here's where I want to encourage you to take a detour. If that has been your MO, if you have had the story that you've gone backwards simply because you have undone some of your results, gained a pound, changed your relationship, or maybe lost something in your career or maybe progress with your kid, here's the detour that I want to encourage you to make. Start with first and foremost accepting that messy seasons are going to happen. Plot twists are normal because we're living a very human life. Let yourself feel the sting of that. Nothing is going wrong. This is just the normal human condition. And then start asking yourself what I call high currency $1,000,000 questions. I call these $1,000,000 questions because when you can really answer these questions deeply, you will start creating $1,000,000 results. How would you show up if you knew for sure that you were going to be successful after failing? Hold yourself with enough regard to let yourself feel the disappointment or the discouragement of a missed week or a missed month or a missed season and lean in with the Wonderment Filter. The Wonderment Filter is a filter that has a very specific tone and tenor, asking $1,000,000 questions to help you get $1,000,000 results. Questions like, I wonder why I'm back here. I wonder what I left loosey-goosey. I wonder what decisions I left unmade. I wonder what part of my life I let bamboozle my plan. I wonder where I compromised rest. I wonder where I let disbelief derail me. I wonder why I let one day turn into multiple. I wonder where I could have delegated more. I wonder what I could have said no to. I wonder where B- would have been plenty. I wonder what I can specifically learn from this. I wonder what I want to make non-negotiable for myself starting today. I wonder what my minimum viable would be this week. Again, I want you to hear the tone and tenor that I'm asking these questions. These are not rhetorical questions. You have to really sit and actually answer them. And I'm calling these $1,000,000 questions because when you answer them with the tone and tenor that I just offered, you're going to get $1,000,000 in value. And this is the deeper work. After personally losing 60 pounds and then learning to maintain these results through very challenging seasons, unpredictable schedules, work travels, solo parenting when my husband is traveling, random pounds up on the scale, things going sideways. This is the one piece of the process that helps me come back to myself without shame, blame, or judgment. I have learned that plot twists and the occasional complacent week or month can get the best of the smartest overachievers simply because they were missing this skill set in their back pocket. Smarts have nothing to do with your ability to get results. So unless you have a time machine, stop telling yourself ever that you have gone backwards. You haven't, if you learn from what took you off track. And here's the juice of this entire episode. Don't just let this be an intellectual exercise that you do in your head. Actually answer these questions, do it in writing to make this more of an anchoring exercise, and then take action quickly on what you learn. Again, it's really normal to feel the sting of missed opportunities or an undone result. Hold that feeling. I promise you, it is not too much for you to hold. And then come back to yourself quickly. So I want to come back to my StairMaster story. The first day back when I hit the 12-minute mark, honestly, the feeling of huffy puffy boredom kind of threw me off track. It was surprising for me. I didn't realize that I would have undone so many of my gains in such a short period of time. So I had that very normal thought. I've gone backwards. I can't believe myself. I've let a whole month slip by. And because I was not expecting it and I was fairly surprised that this is where I was, I did let that sentiment drive me off track. I got off the StairMaster. I was kind of mad about it. I threw in the towel. I quit. But on my drive home, I started to ask myself the Wonderment Filter questions. I sat with the discouragement of lost gains and I asked myself, I wonder what took me off track. I wonder how I might want to handle the boredom next time. I came back 2 days later, armed and ready with the plan. At the very normal 12-minute mark, I started feeling bored. I started noticing the huffy and puffy feeling, but rather than telling myself I've gone backwards, I leaned in and said, we just have some simple work to do. No drama, no discouragement. I lowered the level to a level 3 or 4 simply to catch my breath, and I reminded myself about why this one result matters to me. That's it. Here's the thing. Doing the work this way of leaning into that moment that you have undone results, allowing yourself to feel the discouragement or the disappointment, holding that feeling with you and taking action through the Wonderment Filter is going to feel better than anything you have ever done before. Inspiration and leaning into the process, which is touching on last week's podcast episode, is way, way, way better fuel than shaming yourself, blaming yourself, or sitting in a soup of discouragement. So the lesson and the takeaway of this podcast episode is really start to pay attention. How often have you told yourself that you've gone backwards when you have missed results? Think about the impact if you stopped telling yourself that one sentence. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast episode. And if it resonated with you, make sure you bookmark this one because it's normal to hit the plot twist. It's normal to experience the moment of discouragement, but there is a detour that we can take so you stop recreating results and start to build momentum back. If you enjoyed this episode, share this one with a friend who needs to hear it or with your local community. Leave us a rating and review. And if you haven't taken the stress quiz yet, make sure you head over to burnstressloseweight.com/stress. It's 10 questions that will guide you to your predominant stress archetype. It will show you why you respond the way you do when you have missed the mark on something or when weight loss is not going your way. And it will give you a personalized roadmap on how to walk out of that experience. I hope you all love this one, and I will see you next week. Bye. One lesson that I have learned over the years is when women feel better on the inside out, everyone around them gets to benefit. Your career, your family, you all get to claim the up level. So if today's podcast episode gave you a new way to think or maybe challenge an old perspective that you've had, take it with you the rest of this week. And if this podcast episode resonated with you, I would love it so much if you could leave us a rating and review and share this episode with a friend or in your local community. And if you know you want more support and structure in achieving your body goals this year, it might be time for us to work together. Head over to www.burnstressloseweight.com where I have the latest resources and all of the information about how you can work with me. I hope you guys have an amazing week, and I will see you at the